All right, guys, welcome into Big Hitters Only. If you're watching on YouTube, I am wearing a Rowback UNC sweatshirt, navy blue with the Carolina logo, Carolina blue little ties here. It's awesome. It's stretchy. Rowback, the UNC collection. Check it out. Use promo code BHO20 for 20% off your first order. I'm loving the stuff they sent me. Rowback, BHO20 for 20% off your order. The sales are rolling in. All right, cool podcast today. A little bit different. Two new guests. First, bring on Richard Johnson, a writer for CBS, a podcaster, host of the Split Zone Duo. He's electric. I met him in Chapel Hill at the TCU game when I was showing those guys around campus. So we talk a little UNC, a little Belichick, a little Chapel Hill, but really dive into some college football stuff for the top three storylines so far this season. Talk Florida, talk Alabama, and talk Arch Manning. Have him for about 20 minutes, so check that out, Richard Johnson. And then following that, brought on Matt Zenitz, another coworker, works at CBS, national writer for CBS, used to do some 24/7 sports stuff. He's a newsbreaker. He's a writer, a reporter, transfer portal, NIL, does some NFL newsbreaking as well. So it was interesting to have him on. He apologized profusely, but he was pretty distracted during the interview because a lot of news was happening, which is kind of a cool element to the podcast. So he breaks some small NFL news during the podcast, a little distracted during it, so I apologize for that. But he was very, very gracious with his time and apologized to me profusely. But interesting to hear him talk about his career, also UNC, the transfer portal, and Bill Belichick, but also getting to like breaking news, being a scoop news breaking style reporter. What's that like? What's the process for developing sources, which I always think is very interesting, and kind of living in that world of NFL news breaking and college football news breaking. I definitely want to have him back on to kind of dive more into what that world is like. So Richard Johnson and Matt Zenitz, both from CBS. Guys, remember to go to BHO, use BHO20 at checkout for everything on Rowback. I love the polo they sent me. I got a nice Q-zip. There's a bunch of different colors and designs for everything. And if you get a big order for your family, for your friends, you got holidays coming up, 20% off can make a big difference off your order. BHO20 at checkout. And we'll talk to you next time, guys. Enjoy this podcast. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Big Hitters Only on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. All right, and now we bring on CBS's Richard Johnson to the podcast. Big Hitters Only, your first time appearance. I met Richard 2 weeks ago at the UNC TCU game, showed him around Chapel Hill. A dynamic personality. Wanted to bring him on to talk a little bit UNC football, some general college football stuff, and then kind of riff from there. What's going on, Richard?
Big Hitters Only. I'm on this podcast with the mayor of Chapel Hill right now. I mean, move over. The chancellor of University of North Carolina is Ross Martin, as far as I'm concerned.
That's right. We had a fun time at TCU, me, you, and a bunch of my buddies. And then we were with, who else we were with? Talty. Yeah, Talty. Yeah. Walking around. We went to, went to the Deke fraternity. Walked over to some tailgates at the Bell Tower. Shout out Clint Myers. We took him to the pig picking at Clint Myers' tailgate. It was a good time here. Dude, your name, I just realized it. Dude, Dick Johnson. How many jokes you gotten off that?
Oh, the boys in high school got their licks, and I tell you right now. There's a nickname that I don't know if we can. I don't know if it's clearable on air, but the nickname that the boys from high school call me is it's still alive and well. I can tell you that right now.
I can share. Mine's going many, many places for that one. All right, cool. So you're in Chapel Hill. Give us your first time in Chapel Hill.
First time in Chapel Hill. Had been to Raleigh and had been to Durham, but had not been to Chapel Hill. So finally completed the triangle triple, so to speak, triple play, so to speak. Did it all, by the way, within a 4-week span. Did all three within a 4-week span. I was down for some weddings, had a live event down there. Played a little golf at Waduke, I'm told. Washington Duke Inn is the name of it. Got absolutely brutalized by that golf course, let me tell you. So I got to come back and have an easier time of it at Finley, as I understand it. I love Chapel Hill. It was great. Chapel Hill to me was, of the three, kind of the most like college town setup, as I kind of understand it. Raleigh a little too sanitized, and Durham also a little more on the city side than I expected. But I had a great time in Chapel Hill, man. It was great walking around. It was great being there. The energy of a football Saturday, and I know it wasn't a Saturday, but walk with me.
Yeah.
The energy of a football game is just different. You know, I was even asking you, how does this compare to like a big basketball game atmosphere? And then we were just kind of talking. It's like, well, like a Tuesday night basketball game in February, like you're not tailgating, right? You're not like, I'm sure the Dean Dome's plenty lit, but like you're not out tailgating for 8 hours before the game. You're not a packed campus. So it was cool to see a place like Carolina be jazzed about football in the way that they were that day. Unfortunately, right until here.
Yeah. I mean, you saw it all. The perfect day to come. The weather was awesome. I mean, the bars were rocking early. I mean, always the issue with UNC is they get started late with the tailgating. It's a very sleepy crowd, slow arriving. But the 8 p.m. kickoff allowed a full day of preparation. You can hang out with the kids in the morning, start getting to the tailgate early afternoon, and you saw it all with the one of the main bars on Franklin Street, a big frat with the perfect location there on the corner of Cameron and Columbia. Walk through campus, took you through the quad. That got rocking later on. I wasn't with you at that point, but when the band started, they had that Chase Rice playing, and that was packed. That was cool to see as well because that was a new thing. And then obviously the Bell Tower when you interviewed Brian Chacos, and I mean that's like the epicenter of tailgating, so it was really cool. All right, what the Tar Heels like? What are national people saying right now? I mean, I've been telling my friends one game. It's one game. You can't judge him and what UNC football is doing based on one game. Yeah, they got their ass kicked against TCU. It was not pretty. We just talked with Matt Zenitz, who you did the College Football Insiders about. The roster's just not there. They're so behind in terms of talent. Bill Belichick doesn't have much to work with. But what are the national people saying about UNC right now? I know we're 2 games in about UNC.
Yeah, I mean, that first game was shocking. It was shocking, I thought, to me, how they didn't really have a change-up after a couple of the bespoke things that they came into the game with did not work. Like, they come in the first drive of the game, they're moving the ball to the 6-0 line, setup that they brought in a few times. It was pretty clear that TCU had no idea that was coming. TCU was saying after the game they practiced like against the triple option one day in training camp because they just had no idea what Carolina was going to do. So UNC comes out, they do that 6 offensive line thing on that first drive. They move the ball. It's pretty clear that TCU's run fits were not in the right place. They got them in the right place, and then the game was effectively over. I was pretty shocked at how little Carolina was able to do on defense. They got really soft in coverage. I thought there were some things that TCU was expecting from Steve, specifically based on Washington film, that they did not get at all, pressure-wise. Like, they were expecting some more Josh Hoover to be heated up a little bit more, and he wasn't. It really, you see how lacking the personnel really is. Surprisingly so to me. I did not think the personnel was going to be that poor in that game. I think they had a perfect palate cleanser on Saturday against Charlotte. Like, let's get in and out of that Charlotte game. No muss, no fuss. They ran Gio Lopez a little bit more in that game. I was a little surprised in the first game. Gio Lopez moving under center. Like, Gio Lopez is turning his back to the defense. So what are we doing there? That's something that I didn't really expect. So just, I don't know. It's pretty clear how limited they are from a personnel standpoint. You would have thought that Bill and that staff would be able to figure some things out, but we'll see if this will be just more of a more medium-term build over the course of the season. I know Clemson is coming up here pretty soon. October?
First week in October. They have a bye week right before. So you have Richmond in Chapel Hill this weekend, then UCF down in Orlando, then a bye week, and then Clemson October 4th, I think. So
that UCF game's a winnable game. UCF's not very good.
Yeah, that'll be a great test. I mean, it's nice that UNC had Charlotte and then Richmond, but nothing's guaranteed now. So we'll see. I don't really know the roster that well either. Like, this is not an X and O's roster podcast. When I used to cover them, I knew the 3 deep. Now, with so many changes, I don't know. I mean, they lost everything at linebacker, and like there was so many missed tackles and misalignments. They picked on Marcus Allen. Did you see the stat that he got targeted 9 times and was caught on and got caught on 9 times and missed 4 tackles? So clearly TCU.
And that, like, tackling, like, that's one of the things that I'm just like,
Yeah.
Tackling, I understand people kind of think like tackling, it's a physicality. Tackling is a teachable skill. It is a teachable skill, especially if you are the greatest coach of all time, who is one of the best, if not the best defensive minds of all time. It is a teachable skill, and they look like they had not been taught it in camp in that first game.
Yeah, and much of it's like tracking. I just remember, like, you teach this tracking thing where, like, you get the right angles. Like, that's huge, and that is teachable. To, like, recognize it with your eyes and go where you need to go, and then move the ball. I mean, it was the defensive basics was a big surprising thing, and that's what you think you brought Bill Belichick in to fix, like the basics. Teach football, get them to a point where once you start adding talent, you can start dominating teams. So I'm just interested to see where it goes, and like it's just one game, get to 6 or 7 wins. The schedule's still so easy. I was reassured by what Gio Lopez did against Charlotte. He looked better. He looked sharper. Saw some things out of the running backs that was exciting. Damon June looked explosive. I'm not sure how much you watched of Charlotte, but like there are some things you're like,
I have not. No, I
didn't think you did.
In much.
I didn't think you did.
Charlotte.
It was like half the fans couldn't find it because it was on ESPN Plus. If you were like, it was very difficult to find for a lot of people. So yeah, we're not breaking down Charlotte tape. I'm interested to see where it goes, and I think the hype has been brought down. You've got to see the text I'm getting from state fans and anybody in North Carolina talking so much shit about this regime, but it's one game. All right, let's move on to college football. We're two games in. Give us your top 3 storylines in college football right now.
Well, the big thing is obviously Bama. Bama, they got Wisconsin this weekend. They're like 20.5-point favorites. But Alabama's got big issues up front in its defensive interior. Tim Keenan had tightrope surgery. They're very good nose tackle. And then Jeremiah Beaman got hurt and is out for the season last week during practice. So they're down to really young players on the defensive interior. Wisconsin, it's a different Wisconsin. No more air raid stuff. They're going to try to run the ball. Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator there, they want to run the ball, get in the zone blocking scheme, and pound the rock a little bit. So pay attention there to how Alabama holds up. Alabama is heavily favored. They should win the game. But with Ryan Williams' concussion still a factor, didn't play last week. Didn't really need him, but didn't play last week against Louisiana Monroe. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, Florida. I'm a Florida alum.
Let's stop right there. Kalen DeBoer. Like, how hot is that seat? Is it real? It's not. Like, I don't see them moving on from him even after this year. What do you think?
If it stays like this, I mean, people down there are livid. That buyout is doable. Yes, the big number is the big number, but it's doable as far as you can pay it out over time. Like Mark Stoops' buyout at Kentucky is all due within 60 days. It's like $35 million, and he basically effectively gets it now.
Jesus.
Kalen DeBoer's buyout is different. Kalen DeBoer's buyout is over a course of time. I think it goes to like 2031 that you pay it out. So it's a little bit different as far as the payout structure. The problem is, you start to hear some things that this staff is just not the right staff for this team, this collection of individuals. It was interesting because Ty Simpson steps in as starting quarterback. You think, okay, well, last year they're kind of fitting a square peg in a round hole with the offense with Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe was such a freak physically that you have to get him on the field and just get the ball in his hands. But with Ty Simpson, who's been in the program for a few years, son of a coach, they would be better on offense. And I think their offensive problems were beyond Ty Simpson in that Florida State game. They were just sloppy. Ryan Williams was sloppy. No Jam Miller at running back. He has a collarbone injury. He might be back this week. We'll see. But he has a collarbone injury. And their backup running back, the drop-off from Jam Miller at running back was not good at all. And the backup running back that should have been spelling Jam Miller plays at Michigan now. Justice Haynes, good player. But they let him out of the building in January. So I think there is a misevaluation of Alabama's roster that happened from this coaching staff. Alabama did not take a ton of transfers last cycle. And because of that, you think, okay, well, they're going to run it back with their guys, and they're going to be contending for the college football playoff. Now, obviously, their goals are still in front of them, but if they don't show well in this game, I'm not filled with optimism about as they get into the teeth of their SEC schedule. They got to handle Wisconsin this weekend.
Doesn't get much easier. All right. Is Kalen DeBoer the head coach in 2026?
It depends. It depends on how this season goes. We got to see how this season goes. I think it's too early to throw the baby out with the bathwater in a lot of these situations. You can see which way they're trending early, but teams can get better over the course of the season. We're about to talk about Florida. That's what happened with Florida last season. We'll see what happens this season.
All right. Number 2 storyline, Florida. You're a UF grad.
I am. I'm a UF grad. I'm a Gainesville native. So I'm hearing it in my group chats from friends from home for sure. So Billy Napier, we talk about the buyout structure there. Billy Napier, half of it is around $20 million. Half of it is due within 30 days upon his firing, and then the rest is paid out over the course of time if he were to be fired. Scott Strickland, Florida's athletic director, just got a 5-year extension, and the University of Florida does not currently have a permanent school president. So that would lead one to believe that this is going to be Scott Strickland's show as far as making the decision to fire Billy Napier or keep him on. There was some uncertainty, I should say, about if that was going to be the case last year. But then, as I understand it, if Philly was going to be fired last year, it would have been Scott's decision last year. So where do we go from here? I think Florida's problems are mainly that DJ Lagway does not look like he's improved. Lagway did not throw in spring, had core muscle surgery in January, has a shoulder injury as well that he has not had surgery on, but is just kind of there. Didn't need surgery, I guess, but it's just kind of there. It looks like he has not really taken the next step. I think some of that is due to lack of rest. Again, didn't throw in spring. He's got wide receivers that were hurt a lot in camp. There is a lack of chemistry in this Florida passing game. That's not great when you're coming up against an LSU team that's got probably the best defensive backcourt in college football, or at least top 3. I mean, they're probably not Ohio State, but they're pretty damn good on the back end, is LSU. So what can Florida do in that game? A 10-point underdog heading into that game. Florida actually usually shows pretty well against LSU because this staff is they're really into beating LSU, or at least trying to. This staff, Billy Napier in general, when he was the head coach at ULL, Louisiana Lafayette, he was really not given the time of day by LSU when the LSU job opened that went to Brian Miller. So there's a little bit of red assness in there. And obviously Florida beat LSU last year in Gainesville. So can they pull the rabbit out of the hat again this year? I don't know. If they don't win this game, then you worry about a potential snowball because it's this. They play Miami next week, who blew the doors off them last year. And then there's also it's not just losing to Miami, it'd be losing to USF and Miami in the same season before September. That tells you something about Florida in the pecking order of the state of, which ain't very good. And then it's Texas A&M, Georgia in October, the first week in November. It's, the schedule's tough. It just is. So in the SEC, it's a hell of a schedule.
Yeah, Napier, this is his 4th season, 6-7 in 22, 5-7 in 23, 8-5 last season, and starting off 1-1. He is 20-20 overall. And that's not going to cut it. I mean, if this season is anywhere average, then they're probably done with him, right? I mean, 4 years is plenty of time.
And I think you're pretty justified in doing that. If you get to the end of the season and it's average again, you pull the plug on it. I get it.
Why hasn't it worked? How's the recruiting? How's the transfer portal stuff? What's been the core issue, you think, in why they can't get to the next level here?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think the recruiting is about where you want it. Again, it's not like they don't have the quarterback. It's from a raw talent perspective. It's not like they don't have the players from a raw talent perspective. I think they've done good work in the portal. I think their lines are pretty good. They got 2 all-conference players on the offensive line. They've got Caleb Banks, probably going to be a first-round draft pick. He didn't play on Saturday, but he's probably going to be a first-round or early-round draft pick. The defensive back stable is the only thing that I'm kind of worried about throughout Billy Napier's tenure from a personnel standpoint during this build. But other than that, they're pretty solid from a roster perspective. I think a lot of their stuff is lack of execution on game day. Billy Napier is the play caller. I think the architecture of Florida's offense is not really the problem. There are some things that you'd like to see, but I really think it's mostly an execution thing and a development thing from DJ Lagway and that offense. And then it's also a game management thing. They are undisciplined, a lot of penalties. They give USF 30 yards at the end of the game to aid them driving down the field for the game-winning field goal. I mean, you got a player who spits on an opponent 3 days after everybody in America watched Jalen Carter do it against the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday night, on the Thursday night proceeding. So it's those are little discipline things that you see that are poor. You had 2 touchdowns get called back by penalties in that game that Florida had scored on. It's discipline. It's little things. It's game management as well. I thought that the way Billy Napier called the game as far as punting in some situations, playing for field goal, in some situations, I didn't really like. There's a lack of going for broke mentality. You are seeing an uptick of teams going for it on 4th down throughout college football. Florida's not one of those teams. So there are game management situations that I also think are poor from Florida.
All right, last one. What's another storyline? Give us one more quickly here, and we'll get you out of here.
For now, it's the Arch stuff. Where is Arch Manning? Obviously he got bamboozled in week 1 by Matt Patricia and that Ohio State defense in the San Jose State. I think it was San Jose State they played on Saturday. They got rolling there a little bit after a shaky kind of first quarter. But, there are videos of Arch like grimacing when he throws. There are some rumors that Arch may be playing a little hurt, and I don't know if they're true. Sark does not seem to be entertaining them. Also, it's kind of weird how Sark handled that.
Yeah,
when Sark was like, "What are you talking about?" We're like, "Sark, we
the
all
bathroom comment."
All right, we all watched the video. If you want to say he's not hurt, that's fine. But you got to find an answer for it that's more than what are you talking about? Because everybody watched the video that shows him kind of grimacing, and there have been rumors, like I said, about him potentially being hurt. So, who knows what's going on, man? It's the vibes are odd right now out of Austin.
Yeah.
But they've got a few weeks to get it right. They've got 2 more body bag games and then a bye week, and then they play Florida. So that may be a get-right spot for them in Gainesville as well.
It's just so much pressure on him with his name, and just everybody knew him when he was 15, 16 years old. And now it's, now this just shines on him. It is a lot of pressure. You got to give him time. But they expect him to be the number 1 pick, and he just might not be. He may be a first-round pick. He may be a second-round pick. You just never know. All right, let's get you out of here. Tell us. So I didn't even know that you did the Split Zone Duo podcast because I've heard of that. Were you in Raleigh for the OG podcast thing?
I was.
Okay.
We had a good old time at the Sports Podcast Fest, Rialto Theater.
Yeah.
Shout out. That was why I was in Raleigh a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
We had a great time doing that show. So, CBS Sports HQ, CBS Sports YouTube page, College Football Insiders with CBS, and then I'm also Split Zone Duo wherever podcasts are given away for free and on Substack, splitzoneduo.com.
Tell us a little about Split Zone Duo. Explain, because I've heard about that. I do want to start listening to it. Tell us about why we should listen to that podcast.
Yeah, we have a good time. We like to say, and this, I think, for your North Carolina audience will ring true. We like to say we eat the whole hog of college football at Split Zone Duo. We have a great time. We'll give you everything from Alabama and Georgia to we talked some FCS, we talked some HBCU last week on the show. Our midweek show is kind of a table setter tasting menu for the week, kind of telling you a little bit about a lot in the college football schedule, and then we do a 30-minute-ish Sunday recap show that comes out Sunday afternoons. That's everything you missed in the college football day before. So we have a good time, and we've got great subscriber content as well. We go deep. We have fun. We do some coaching rumors as far as that when that really starts to heat up. We also do some kind of long-form documentary style, audio documentary stuff, and all that sort of stuff. So there's a little bit for everything, or for everyone, I should say, at splitzoneduo.com. So we have a good time doing that. It's me and my co-host Alex Hirschner have built something that we think is pretty special, a really special community of college football fans. We have a good time.
That's awesome. I'm definitely going to subscribe, and you should too. It sounds like right up my alley with like the recaps and then some long form stuff, and it gets you a good taste of what's going on in the college football world if you missed a lot of things. All right, Richard, it was great meeting you in Chapel Hill. Happy to have a new friend. We're kind of co-workers in a sense, not day to day, but definitely part of the same Paramount family. And thanks for coming on Big Hitters Only. Maybe we'll get you on here in a couple months when things slow down in the college football world, if they ever do. See you later, man. We have a special guest. This is CBS national college football reporter Matt Zenitz. First time on Big Hitters Only. What's up, Matt?
What's up, man? Good to be on with you, Rob.
Yeah, so I don't really. Matt and I've talked a couple times, texted a couple times, back and forth. He's a newsbreaker for CBS, worked with 24/7 Sports a lot as well. When we get into some Belichick stuff, some UNC stuff, but also college football in general, and like your career and your job, which I think as like a newsbreaker is super interesting. The reason why I wanted to have you on is I was watching the College Football Insiders show from last week when y'all talked about
You
the
heard me
Belichick.
talking about it?
Yeah. You talked about me a little bit. I got sent that, but also you talked about Belichick's roster,
Mhm.
and I grabbed some quotes from that. So I wanted to dive into that first. It was funny is like we were trying to record this, guys, and Matt was getting so many texts and calls, and so it's an interesting role as a newsbreaker. He's the Adam Schefter of college football. So here's the quotes I want to read you. I want you kind of to expand on.
But I appreciate that.
Yeah. Here's the quotes I want you to expand on. You said only there's two players on UNC's roster that NFL scouts think have a draftable grade. There's a huge
Correct.
talent differential. It's a work in progress, and that UNC just doesn't have much to work with right now. You spoke with an NFL player personnel guy, and there's just not many players to scout on the
Yeah.
roster, and not a lot to work with. So, like, go back into when Belichick was hired and explain kind of how they got to this point in the first year here in 2025.
Well, first of all, just to circle back, so they have the two corners. So Thad Dixon being the primary NFL prospect, but both the starting corners are in line to be draftable guys and are ones that have come up with NFL scouts. But there are some others for whatever it's worth. And I was pulling this up just because in my old age at 39 now, I feel like my memory gets worse and worse every year. So sometimes need like the written reminders. But there are some other players like Andrew Simpson at linebacker, for example, Willow Steen at tackle that are like fringe draftable and at least have a shot to be picked. So while the two corners are the only ones with true draftable grades right now, there are a couple others with those being two of them, and I feel like one or two more that are like right on the fringe that have a shot to get picked also. But the main point of that is when you compare this roster to some others just even around the ACC, whether it's Clemson, Miami, you can pick out some other teams also. There's just a noticeable difference in terms of the talent that the head coach has to work with. So it goes without saying that first game didn't go well. Far from groundbreaking in terms of me throwing that out there. But you have to remember at the same time, regardless of how great of a coach you are, first year is always going to be a work in progress. There are always going to be growing pains. It was the case for Nick Saban at Alabama. It's going to be the case for Bill Belichick at North Carolina. You can go down the list in terms of other coaches that has been the case for also. So as easy as it would be to just jump to conclusions based on that first game, I think that would be premature. And when you look at the recruiting class that they've started to put together for next year, it leads to being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit if they're able to keep those guys and continue to build on just adding some of the talent that they've started the process of adding going into the future.
And one big talking point now is that like they got hired, Belichick and Lombardi got hired in December, and you're so late to the transfer portal process for that first window. And so they weren't able to go after the top talent in that first window because the first window is a lot more higher end talent than the spring window, right? After spring practice, I guess April, May range. So, like, how did they approach that? And then how did they approach the spring window? And what are they doing now to get ready for? I mean, it's tough to think about next season right now, but like, obviously, to get the talent in, how are they approaching that transfer wise for the next portal opening, which will come after this season?
Well, most of all, for moving forward, it's been the high school part of it, and you can see some of the players that they have commitments from at this point, including at the quarterback position, that should lead to some optimism there for the North Carolina fan base. But in terms of the spring portal window, even though there were some issues in the first game, Gio Lopez was a significant pickup for them. So Gio is somebody who would have been coveted to a large degree by a number of schools around the country. He's a talented young player that did good things in South Alabama, and that was one that North Carolina was able to get done pretty quickly. And he's someone who, first of all, has years left. And regardless of how that first game went, I think you're going to see consistent growth from him moving forward. And he's talented enough that have had people around the college football landscape bring up just as a talent comparison to Tagovailoa in terms of Gio. Not saying that Gio is going to ultimately be a top 5 overall draft pick or anything like that, or be a Heisman finalist like Tua was at Alabama, but just that when you watch Gio, you see some flashes there that remind you of Tua a little bit, which whenever you're brought up in the same sentence as somebody like that, it's obviously a good thing.
Yeah. So, was it just like they weren't able to get in with good players in that first window, and so they're kind of scrambling? Like, is there anything else you can tell us about kind of their style of transfer portal acquisition in the spring, and trying to do it in December and January, and what happened in the spring?
So give me one sec. It's amazing. Like these, once again, they don't expect to have things coming up, having things come up. So you can see just like, even if you look at Twitter right now, what's
going on
at the moment, which actually more like NFL stuff right now, but be done with this in literally a minute.
This is great podcast.
In season, right? Like, just always stuff going on, especially like for me, have moved into this combo role now with the NFL part of it to go along with doing everything had already been doing on the college side. So this combo national NFL and national college role for us. So now having NFL phone calls and stuff coming up to go along with everything on the college side, which I do apologize with.
Yeah. No, for those, I'll talk right here. Matt just texted that a Bengals defensive end, Isaiah Foskey, is signing to their practice squad. Sorry, the Bengals are signing Isaiah Foskey 27 seconds ago.
Yeah, so the two things that have come up, and they're practice squad signings at the NFL level, but two guys that are known from a college standpoint. So have broken or put out in the last 10 minutes, Deuce Vaughn, who people will probably remember from Kansas State, was an All-American player there, spent the last couple of years with the Cowboys, was a draft pick for them, that the Broncos are picking him up as a practice squad acquisition. And then what came up just now was Isaiah Foskey, who was a second-round draft pick going back a couple of years ago, was an All-American player at Notre Dame, that the Bengals are picking him up for their practice squad after he had worked out for the Eagles and Bears previously during the course of the last week. So North Carolina fan base probably has limited interest in terms of that stuff, but those are the things that just came up in the.
It's cool to have some breaking news here on the podcast. All right, you good?
I'm all good now.
Okay, so the transfer portal strategy for Belichick and Lombardi, entering this season, like in January and December, and what happened in the spring, like, what can you tell us about kind of what they were trying to do and how they were successful or not successful in trying to boost the talent up for this season?
So the Gio part was the biggest component of it. And again, I know I said it already, not trying to be repetitive, but I think you'll see continued growth from Gio. And what will probably matter to people that follow North Carolina far more than my opinion is the opinion of people around the college football world. Just have a high opinion of him from a talent standpoint and think that he's going to develop into a good player for North Carolina at the quarterback position.
Yeah, and you saw a lot of that in the game against Charlotte. He looked better. He looked sharper. I would like to see him run a little more, but, I mean, it seems tough. Some good passes there as well. All right, let's move off UNC a little bit here. I mean, they're going to hit the portal hard. They're going to have to get more talent. I mean, you clearly said in that video earlier that, like, there needs to be more talent. So they're going to have some recruits coming in. They're going to develop some transfers they like. They're going to get more transfers in there. Let's talk about your job. Super interested in it. I have your LinkedIn here that I was looking at. I think I do. Where'd it go? All right. So did you go to Maryland? Is that right? Where did you go to?
I didn't even go the 4-year college route. So I started in this field legitimately my junior year of high school. Started doing stuff like, I'm from Maryland, and started doing stuff for a website that no longer exists, allsports.com, my junior year of high school, which provided a means for me to start doing stuff around University of Maryland football, the Baltimore Ravens, and actually interviewing and doing stories on some prominent college players at that time, like the Jonathan Vilmas of the world at Miami, and said some different people along those lines. I actually did a story on Michael Vick, and I remember having to be pulled out of French class and go to the teacher's office because the Falcons PR guy, Steve Rodriguez at the time, called with interviews that had set up with Peerless Price, Algie Crumpler, and Brian Finneran. So I had to go to the teacher's lounge or French teacher's office to go and do those interviews my junior year of high school. So a long-winded way of saying, like, got started at that point and then was fortunate to have some opportunities coming out of high school, both from a writing standpoint, so for a newspaper that had just started up in the Baltimore area, to go along with having opportunity to do some stuff from radio standpoint to go along with that just probably most importantly, my mom felt like it would be worthwhile to pursue those, see where they led. Could always come back to the 4-year college or 4-year school part of it if things didn't work out. But fortunately, those opportunities led to other opportunities and ultimately have contributed to me being in position that in now.
Yeah, it's truly, kind of I mean, it seems like kind of the traditional route. Started doing some stuff here, moved up, AP correspondent, University of Maryland beat writer for the Baltimore Sun, which is the prominent paper in that area. Alabama Media Group seems that's kind of where you got deeper into. I guess you were with Maryland, but that's always a well-respected organization, the Alabama Media Group, AL.com, as a Alabama beat writer, SEC reporter, and then the On3 move. Did you always want to be a sports writer? Like, is that what you grew up, like middle school, high school, like, I want to do sports? I mean, that's how I was. I got to it very late, but I always wanted to work in sports. I just didn't find it until we're the same exact age. We're both 39. So did you always want to do sports?
Yeah. More so high school. That's when the interest really started to pick up my sophomore, junior year of high school to the point that started doing stuff, like I said, with that website, which you probably don't even remember, allsports.com.
Yeah.
But that really picked up my junior year and knew that I wasn't going to play sports beyond high school, but wanted to be involved with sport. So that provided a means to doing that. And then just being around some different people in this space at that time, and just having the interest that I did in reading stuff and following stuff and keeping up with what was going on from a transactional standpoint. Like literally, it's funny now just because my primary focus is news and information. The first story that I ever had published was something from a news and information standpoint on Marcus Robinson, who used to play for the Chicago Bears, had a big year for them, like late 90s or early 2000s, and was just interested on my end in whether there was any chance when Marcus was cut by the Bears of him ending up with the Ravens. So at that point, was able to get in contact with Marcus's agent. I don't even remember how I did that, but we was able to get in contact with Marcus's agent, got some stuff from him on the record talking about teams that were possibilities, including the Ravens. And the agent talked about Marcus's wife's connection to like the Maryland or DC area. And then ultimately within a couple of weeks, Marcus signed with the Ravens. But that was the first story, coincidentally, that ever had published. My mom still has that story printed out and at the house somewhere back in Maryland. But yeah, that was really the point, that junior year of high school specifically, where the interest started to pick up more and more.
Okay, so then like the news breaking stuff, like the talking with the agents, a good segue there. Like, when did you? I think some reporters have to decide if they're going to be like newsbreakers or like long form, or trying to be a really, really good writer, if they want to just break news and do, be that dominant source on Twitter, sourced up intel. Like, when did you make that decision? Like, and then like I remember recognizing you at On3, like all of a sudden this guy, Matt Zenitz, was like kind of breaking all these transfer portal stuff or, different acquisitions. Like, how did you get to that point? And like, what's the process to become a newsbreaker for the college football world?
I mean, it really started back when I was covering the Ravens. So my first like full time beat job where I was covering a team on a day-to-day basis was the Ravens starting in 2012. And that's where the interest really started to pick up more and more in terms of trying to break news and lead the way from a news and information standpoint. And obviously there's a process there in terms of building up the sourcing necessary to
Mm-hmm.
be able to break news. So have been fortunate just from covering the Ravens, transitioning to covering University of Maryland, going to cover Alabama, and then role progressing to covering SEC as a whole. Like during that process, was able to build up a good relationship base and sourcing base around the football world as a whole, to the point that like while I was covering the SEC for AL.com, started breaking things that went well beyond just the SEC. Was breaking NFL stories, was breaking like Michigan's DC hire,
Mm-hmm.
and different things that went beyond just that conference, which contributed to getting some opportunities from a national standpoint, and had passed some stuff up prior to making the move to On3, but then ended up making that move in 2021. That moved me into the national space, and then we was there at On3. We was able to continue to build up relationship base there, just moving into the national role, and
Yeah.
then obviously been here at CBS since the end of 2023. Had covered college exclusively or individually for the beginning part of time here, and now it's been the last month or so since moving into this national role, or I'm sorry, this combo role with NFL and college stuff.
So let's talk sources. I mean, when I covered UNC, you talk to assistant coaches, you talk to high school coaches, you talk to parents, you try to talk to parents. I never dealt with agents. You talk to alumni, boosters, which I'm sure you've done. You try to, anybody that will talk to you that could have information, you're trying to build. So what is your strategy for like building sources and like, I remember when I was covering recruiting for UNC, like you have to give the coaches something to give them information. So you're trying to get information from recruits, where they stand to give to the coach to get information on, what they can give you about the recruit or another recruit or whatever, anything on the
Yeah.
roster. Like there's obviously a lot of different ways, and I'm didn't get to your level of like, agent stuff. NIL has definitely changed things. Like what is a tell our listeners, like, how do you build
And to
sources?
be
What's the
clear,
process there?
yeah, and to be clear, it's not just agent stuff. Like it's important to have relationships around the football world. So obviously, there's communication at different points with agents, but at the same time, for me, again, without trying to be repetitive, have been fortunate to build up a good wide ranging relationship base just around the football world as a whole, which is necessary when it comes to just being in position to be able to get news and information. But for me, it's about forming good quality relationships and finding the right balance of obviously trying to lead the way from a news and information standpoint as much as possible, but at the same time handling this stuff as responsibly and respectfully as possibly can, doing right by the people involved. There are different times where obviously some of these relationships around the football world have questions for me. We're able to be a resource in terms of sharing different things that I'm hearing or whatever, which contributes to the relationship growing. So it's really that kind of balance or combination for me that's contributed to just the relationships growing like they have.
Why would someone hit you up versus hitting someone else up to break something? Like how do you kind of navigate that world?
I mean, it's a combination of different things. So there are some stories where pursuing stuff on my end and hitting people up or checking with people just to get further confirmation or get things over the finish line and to being to the point of being reportable. So it's not just like somebody reaching out unprompted to me in cases like that. And in other cases where people are reaching out unprompted, I think it's more just a product of some of the relationships that have been built up and people just helping out when they're in position to help out.
And obviously being like, now CBS, like your brand at CBS is a very well recognized and respected company. They have the NFL rights, they have the college football rights, the relationships with the SEC and the Big Ten and all these different games they carry. So that's a huge advantage.
And
What's
sorry
it?
that just continuing to look down at phone, like getting blown up by text. I felt terrible that doing that. Just yeah,
No,
you know
you're
how it
good.
is. Like we had one start there this time of year. Just say, yeah, yeah, it gets
Yeah,
very
maybe the
the
next
phone.
time we'll do early morning or late night. All right, we'll get you out of here. How is NFL stuff? How's that been different than college stuff? What are the challenges? What's the different world you're living in now?
So for me, was already extremely busy in terms of the amount of time that spent on the phone, as you can probably tell. Like not only based on since we started this, but even this morning. I told you before it came on, like we had originally talked about doing an earlier time, and lo and behold, drop the 3-year old off at school, and then have legitimately 6 phone calls that I'm on after that for the next half an hour to 45-minute period or wait whatever it was. So was already busy enough with the college part of it in terms of the amount of time that's spent on the phone between actual phone conversations or texting, and the NFL part of it has obviously, as I'm sure you can imagine, added to that in terms of the amount of time that's spent on the phone to go along with just having to follow things more closely. So keeping up with just developments around that space beyond just what's going on around the college world, and having to watch more NFL games, which for me, like before moving into this role, I couldn't tell you the last time that it sat down and watched a full NFL game. So obviously need to pay more attention now to that and have a feel for what's going on from a game perspective. So those have been really the primary differences for me.
Yeah. It's a super interesting world. I mean, maybe we get you back on here, maybe in the off season, and dive really deep into kind of like,
Or
um,
early morning or late at
early,
night.
yeah, with like
It was
transfer
a mistake
portal.
on my end. I should have, when you texted me originally, I should have said like early morning or late at night. And it was just a mistake on my part, just thinking that this morning today was going to be a light day. Like that was my real expectation going into today.
Yeah,
And again, it's amazing whenever you think that all of a sudden days that you expect to be light end up being busy.
yeah, like yeah. In this world, for our listeners, like you never know when news is going to break. You never know when kids are going to commit. Like I do basketball recruiting for the 24/7 sports side. Like you don't know when kids are going to commit. When suddenly a slow day becomes a fast day. Matt's dealing with that now. Love to have you back on. Maybe transfer portal air. I mean, nothing's more busy than the transfer portal realm. But to get you on to talk about like NIL, transfer portal, that aspect of news breaking, which is very relates to the college football world. The and UNC, which most of our listeners are fans of. But Matt, we appreciate your time. You're now a big hitters only, and we'll talk to you next time, man.
Well, I don't know about the big hitter part, but I will say wait, one thing with this that people can probably see, like you can see what my day is like. So I don't know if there's anything interesting about that whatsoever, but this is legitimately just like what the day is like for me in terms of being on the
Yeah,
phone, have missed three calls while being on here to go along with the constant texting. So you at least get a feel if that's interesting whatsoever of just what goes into trying to keep up with what's going on.
it.
I felt terrible again about like
It's all right.
looking down for half the conversation, but get a feel
No,
for
no, you're
what
great, and it is exciting. Breaking news is exciting. Like it's thrilling. I love breaking news. I love breaking anything I can. Restaurant news, anything related to Chapel Hill. But Matt, we appreciate your time. We'll talk to you next time.